Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eugene Choi, and I would like to start my presentation by asking a simple question. Why are science fiction films successful? Psychologically, it is said that they are successful because the good guys always win. How it works is, we'll look into a movie called Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure everyone is pretty familiar with this movie. The way it works is that the main character is faced with many hardships, and they have many evil temptations, but through all this, they work it through, and they make it at the end. In the movie, when it seems like there is no hope for Middle-earth, bam, Frodo gets rid of the ring, and everything is at peace. But that can't be the only thing that makes these movies successful. It can't be the action and the victory we feel when the good guys finally win. What makes them so successful is the creativity behind these movies. In 1989, Marty McFly goes time traveling into the future, into the year of 2015. And in this movie, Marty McFly shows us the abilities of creativity and how it can fund these movies. This means that next year, we'll be able to see Mr. McFly coming through the doors from the past. The reason why this movie was so impressive was because the producers were able to see and make a society 20 years from the movie that was made, and make predictions of the technologies that could be possible in the future. And they were surprisingly very accurate. An example is Marty McFly walks into a cafe and he wants to play an arcade game, but he can't work the controllers. And two kids come up to him and says, "Why are you using your hands?" When the movie was made in the 80s, it was very impossible to think of wireless video gaming, and they thought of it as a technology way in the future. But for us, it's already something we're really used to with Nintendo Wii, which evolutionized home technology and entertainment in the year of 2006, 8 years before. Not only that, but they also predicted 3D movies, Google Glasses, hover cams, multi-channel video screens, intelligent clothing, video conferencing like we are doing now, and handheld tablet PCs, all which were miraculously predicted 20 years before. Now let's go a little bit further into the future, into the year of 2054. The movie Minority Report imagines a society 50 years from now, and inspired in many of the technologies that are being worked on to this day. An example is Tobii Rex, which is an infrared sensor that senses the user's eyes and replaces the need for a mouse and cursor on a screen. With air writing, we don't need pencils or pens anymore. And also related to eyesight and point grabbing, all these technologies are being worked on as we speak. So with science fiction, we have made these achievements and these progresses. With imagination, we can make these things real. But ladies and gentlemen, we ask ourselves, what about social fiction? This term, coined by Muhammad Yunus, a Nobel Prize winner, is similar to science fiction in that we use our imaginations to dream of a society 20, 30 years ahead of our time and make that fiction reality. It encourages creativity and allows us to think ahead of our time. It gives us a chance to make choices to make a better future 40, 50 years, instead of focusing all our energy into problems right in front of us. So we need these kind of social changes and social fiction to make change. We need to think big and imagine far. And in our presentation, we're going to talk about why we need social fiction and how we're going to achieve them. So first, let's ask why we need social fiction. We're not leaders yet. South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the past, and we worked day and night with one hope that we would one day become a strong nation once more. But from these efforts, everything has changed. In 2004, we have ranked 11th in the highest economic scale according to the WDI. But we didn't work harder for more change. After 2004, our rank has dropped to 15th, and we have maintained this position for the last 5 years. Why are we not making more effort to change? Why has this line been staying stable for so long? The reason is because we're so happy with what we have right now. We don't feel the need to change because life is so good. Why bother? So we're going to look into an example of Motorola, who was dominant during the 1G analog cellular network period. Motorola was dominant, but soon later came 2G and digital cellular networks. But when they came, Motorola didn't really adapt to that change. Why? Because they were already making loads of profit within the 1G market. So what happened was when 2G came along, Motorola was pushed aside from number one, and Nokia became the next new number one in the 2G market. But Nokia also made the same mistake that Motorola did, and they didn't prepare themselves for the next generation, 3G, which brings us to this era, where Apple and Galaxy are fighting to the further competition of the number one trophy. We shouldn't stay where we are because we need to make change. And we need to make these changes so that we can further progress ourselves as leaders. And we need to be able to dream of a future where we can make these things come true. But the second reason why we need social fiction is more specific to Korea in that we have, and we still have, many dreams to dream of and to make come true. Looking into Korea's history, in 1905, Korea was under the colonization of Japan for 40 years. But because we dreamt of a social fiction where we lived in a society free, as a free country, after time we made this social fiction come true. In the 1960s, we were under military dictatorship, and through many movements and revolutions led by the young and educated, we were able to make that social fiction also come true. Now it's the year 2014, and we ask ourselves, what kind of social fiction are we dreaming? What are we dreaming of? These dreams, some dreams are already dreamt of, but have been forgotten. Between the 40s and the 60s, Korea had a really dark period when they were at war with North Korea. After these 3 years of war, the pain and tension from it still remains to this day, 60 years after it was over. The dream of unification still existed, but it was left forgotten because we had other priorities. The world kept on moving forward, and it was now left as homework for future generations to solve. This shows us, the social fiction of unification shows us that as important it is for us to dream of dreams, it's also important for us to execute and to make these dreams possible and real.
Now it's time to answer the question of how. How are we going to create social fiction? How are we going to spark creativity and then propel it to action in order to create such fiction in our society? Well, first, we need to talk more. But here, we don't just mean casually chatting with people around you, although this is equally important. But our focus is more on education. And by education, we mean the need for a major reform in our Korean education system. We need schools that encourage communication among students and teachers. Yes, compared to the past, schools, especially colleges, have tried to increase the number of discussion-based classes. Yet, compared to other foreign countries, Korean education system is still much lecture-based. I'm sure many of you sitting here will agree to having often experienced that awkward moment when a professor asks students to talk to each other or ask questions or share ideas. However, the ability to speak out in a classroom setting is important because communication is a vital tool when it comes to forming an idea, sharing that idea, and spreading that idea with a more open and large community. So we need schools that encourage students to talk to each other more and think outside the box and have fun with new and creative ideas instead of teaching them that the most important goal in their life is to go to a good university. Next, we need to share more. When an idea is armed with creativity and at a transitional stage just before its actual practice, it needs to be shared and spread through a whole community. I'm sure most of you guys are accustomed to this idea of sharing things to social media and SNS. Now, an example of a company that utilized this sharing strategy and positively affected a society is Amazon.com in the US and Alibaba.com in China. Now, both companies succeeded because they used sharing strategy. And what they did was they shared core resources with other companies. To illustrate, Amazon acted as an open platform where it acted as a place for several other companies to gather and share resources and brands so that small businesses and companies could prosper through their infrastructure. Now, third, we need to take action. In taking action, the most important thing to do is to take risks and enjoy new challenges. To be content in one's status quo and being afraid to take risks for the fear of making immediate and tangible loss are what impedes us from exceeding the limits and truly heading towards becoming the number one. Let me give you an example. In today's automobile industry, one of the most important factors in making a car is being environmental friendly, in other words, saving fuel and energy. Following such trend, Germany's Volkswagen introduced Blue Motion to the market, and this car model is based on a technology that attains fuel efficiency by stopping the engine when stepping on a brake, and then starting the engine again when letting go of the brake. Now, after Germany released this car model, Korea's Hyundai Motors company introduced cars that implemented idle stop and go, which is a technology that reduces the release of carbon dioxide. Now, what's unfortunate is that Korea had actually constantly tested and analyzed this technology far before Germany introduced Blue Motion to the market. But the problem is, Korean government did not have much interest, and they feared that they would make risks and mistakes. Therefore, Korea lost dominance over this technology to Volkswagen and other foreign companies. So this example illustrates how making swift and bold actions and making decisions is important in making achievements. Now, we live in a world where changes occur at an unprecedented speed. The human capacity to imagine and be creative has made everything possible in the world we live today, and we have seen such miracles, especially in the realm of science fiction. Now, we need that in social fiction. We need social fiction as global leaders to inspire, to innovate, and aid. We need it to dream the next big dream of Korea and make a difference from one generation to the next. So to write Korea's own social fiction, we need to foster active and dynamic creative thinking, promote a network of exchange of these ideas, and ready ourselves to take risks and put these daring brilliances into action. The human heart is an essential organ for the body to live, for it circulates blood and it provides human body nutrients to live. Just like the heart, creativity is what makes society jump, run, or strive forward. And just as the blood from the heart allows different organs of the body to function, creativity is what stimulates different sectors in society to think and act. Now, just as fast blood circulation increases organ abilities, we need creative thinking, and we need to make that possible through putting that into action. Because to take risks and to take real action is the important key in realizing social fiction. Thank you.